The notification sound had become as constant as breathing in our house. Every 2 minutes, Amanda's phone would light up with another message, and every time, she'd grab it like her life depended on it. I'm a systems administrator. I notice patterns. And this pattern was wrong. Work's been crazy lately, she said, not looking up from her screen as I walked into the kitchen Monday evening. Her thumbs moved frantically across the keyboard. At 9 p.m., I asked, pouring myself coffee. You know how nonprofits are. Donors don't keep business hours. She finally looked up, but her eyes were different, brighter, like she was carrying a secret that made her happy. I'd seen that look before, 10 years ago when we first met. Back then, it was for me. Right, I said, watching her phone buzz again. She practically lunged for it. Sorry, it's just… She started typing again. This donor is really demanding. Wants everything yesterday. Which donor? The Morrison Group. They're considering a major grant. She didn't look up as she answered. I knew the Morrison Group. They'd been clients of my company 2 years ago. They operated exclusively during East Coast business hours and had a strict no-contact policy after 6 p.m. It was now 9:15 p.m. Pacific time, past midnight on the East Coast. Sounds stressful, I said. It really is. I might need to work late again tomorrow. The bathroom incident confirmed my suspicions. Amanda had always been the type to leave her phone charging in the bedroom, to go 30 minutes without checking it. She'd shower in peace, read without interruption, sleep without the blue glow of a screen. Now she carried it everywhere, even into the shower, sealed in a waterproof case for music. When I asked about the sudden need for shower entertainment, she'd laughed it off. I get my best ideas in there. Sometimes inspiration strikes and I need to capture it immediately. But inspiration didn't arrive every 3 minutes with notification chimes. Tuesday morning, I decided to test another theory. Amanda had always been particular about her coffee routine. Same brand, same preparation, same timing. Now she was drinking it while simultaneously texting, multitasking in a way that would have irritated her before. I'm grabbing coffee with Mark after work, I told her, mentioning my coworker. Want to join us? Can't, she said immediately, then caught herself. I mean, I have a donor meeting that might run late. Which donor? The Henderson Foundation. You wouldn't know them. I did know them. I'd helped set up their IT infrastructure 2 years ago. They were based in Seattle and operated strictly during Pacific Time business hours. It was 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. in Seattle. New client? I pressed. Sort of. They're exploring partnerships with organizations like ours. She gathered her things quickly. I really need to get going. Traffic's going to be terrible. Amanda left 15 minutes earlier than usual, claiming she needed to prepare for meetings. Through the kitchen window, I watched her sit in her car for 5 minutes before starting the engine, phone pressed to her ear. That evening, I sat in my home office and did what I do best, gathered data. Amanda's credit card statements showed restaurant charges I didn't recognize, hotel stays during supposed work conferences that didn't exist on her organization's website, and purchases at lingerie stores I'd never benefited from. The patterns were stark once I laid them out in a spreadsheet. Every Thursday for the past 2 months, lunch at Piccolo's Italian Bistro, $78 to $95. Never on our joint calendar, always during her supposed board meeting prep time. Hotel charges at the Riverside Inn. 3 stays in January, 2 in February, all on nights when she'd claimed to be attending late fundraising events or visiting her sister who lived 20 minutes away. Victoria's Secret. $247 in December, $189 in January, $156 in February. When I'd asked about new lingerie at Christmas, she'd said she was treating herself, but I'd never seen any of it. Her phone records were trickier, but not impossible. We shared a family plan, and I had legitimate access to the account for managing our data usage. The patterns were stark. Hundreds of texts to a number not in her contacts, calls that lasted an hour or more during times when she told me she was in meetings. I cross-referenced the dates with our shared calendar. Every girls' night, every overtime project, every family emergency with her sister corresponded to activity with this unknown number. The analytical part of my brain appreciated the elegance of the pattern. The husband part wanted to put my fist through the wall. Instead, I made a plan. Wednesday evening, I called the Riverside Inn. Hi, I need to verify a charge on my credit card. My wife, Amanda Kowalski, stayed there on January 15th, and I want to make sure the room charge is correct. Let me check that for you, sir. The desk clerk's fingers clicked on a keyboard. Yes, Mrs. Kowalski checked in at 2:30 p.m. and checked out at 11 a.m. the following morning. The charge was for a deluxe king suite. Was she alone? I'm sorry, sir, I can't provide information about other guests for privacy reasons. Of course. Thank you. January 15th was the day Amanda had told me she was attending an all-day nonprofit leadership conference across town. The conference had ended at 4 p.m. according to the website, but she hadn't come home until the next morning, claiming the networking dinner ran incredibly late. I called her sister Jennifer. Hey Jen, quick question. Did Amanda stay over at your place on February 8th? I'm trying to reconcile some calendar confusion. February 8th? No, I was in Portland that whole week for work. Why? Just checking dates for our anniversary trip planning. Thanks. February 8th was another Riverside Inn charge and another emergency, with Jennifer, that had kept Amanda out all night. I need to understand the scope of the problem, I told myself, opening a new encrypted folder on my server. Then I need evidence that will hold up in court. Creating Marcus Wellington took 3 days of careful research. I studied Amanda's social media, her college photos, her celebrity crushes, even her Netflix viewing history. Amanda had always been drawn to creative types with business success. The rare combination of artistic sensitivity and financial stability. Marcus became everything David Kowalski apparently wasn't. An architect instead of a tech guy, cultured instead of practical, emotionally available instead of analytically distant. But more importantly, he represented the perfect amalgamation of Amanda's romantic history. Her college boyfriend had been a photography major with family money. Her longest relationship before me had been with a graphic designer who played guitar and drove a vintage Porsche. Her celebrity crushes ran toward actors who played sensitive intellectuals in period dramas. Marcus Wellington inherited the best traits of all of them. I built him a complete digital identity. LinkedIn profile with a carefully curated career history spanning prestigious firms in Chicago, New York, and Portland. His portfolio included sustainable architecture projects that would appeal to Amanda's environmental sensibilities. Facebook came next. 7 years of posts and check-ins that told the story of a successful professional with artistic interests. Marcus attended gallery openings, posted thoughtful commentary on urban planning issues, and shared vacation photos from locations that suggested both culture and financial success. Instagram showcased his architectural photography, images I'd actually taken during our travels over the years, carefully edited to remove any trace of Amanda. Marcus appeared to have an eye for beauty and composition, the kind of visual intelligence that would appeal to someone in communications. I even created email accounts and added him to professional organizations. The Chicago Architecture Foundation, the American Institute of Architects, even a wine appreciation club that hosted monthly tastings. Marcus Wellington existed in digital space as completely as many real people. The key was making him seem real but unavailable, traveling constantly for work, based in Chicago with projects nationwide, recently divorced and newly open to meaningful connections. He was successful enough to be interesting, wounded enough to be approachable, and busy enough that slow relationship development would seem natural. Friday evening, I sat in my office and composed the first message with the care of a master craftsman. Hi, Amanda. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I came across your organization's website while researching sustainable architecture partnerships for nonprofits. Your mission statement really resonated with me, particularly the focus on community-driven environmental solutions. I'm an architect specializing in eco-friendly public spaces, and I'd love to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. I see you're based in the Pacific Northwest. I'm actually working on a project in Portland next month and would be interested in learning more about your organization's approach to environmental advocacy. Best regards, Marcus Wellington. Professional, innocent, bait. She responded in 20 minutes. Hi, Marcus. Thank you so much for reaching out. We're always interested in connecting with professionals who share our vision. I'd love to learn more about your work. Sustainable architecture is such an important component of the environmental movement. Would you be available for a call sometime next week? I'm particularly interested in hearing about your Portland project and how it might relate to some of our community initiatives. Looking forward to connecting. Too eager. Too enthusiastic for a simple professional inquiry. Amanda's typical response to legitimate business contacts was cordial but measured. This had the breathless quality of excitement. I waited until Monday to respond, maintaining Marcus's busy professional persona. Amanda, great to hear back from you. I'm in Chicago this week wrapping up a project, but I could do a call Wednesday afternoon if that works. I looked at your recent gala photos on the website. Impressive turnout. You clearly know how to bring people together for a cause. The Portland project is a mixed-use development focused on affordable housing with integrated green spaces. I think there might be some interesting overlap with your community outreach programs. The personal compliment was intentional. I was testing boundaries, seeing if she would respond to flattery mixed with professional discussion. Her reply came Tuesday morning. Wednesday afternoon works perfectly. I have to say, it's refreshing to connect with someone who understands both the aesthetic and practical elements of environmental work. So many people think nonprofits are just about good intentions, but effective change requires strategic thinking and professional execution. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. The subtext was clear. Amanda was drawn to the idea of connecting with someone who would appreciate her professional competence. In her mind, I'd never shown sufficient admiration for her career accomplishments. Wednesday's call lasted 2 hours. I sat in my car outside the office building where Amanda worked, listening to her voice through my earpiece while watching her through the conference room windows. The professional discussion lasted maybe 15 minutes. The rest was personal: her background, her interests, her thoughts on relationships and life goals. You know, she said, 40 minutes into the call, her voice taking on that intimate tone I hadn't heard directed at me in months. It's refreshing to talk to someone who actually listens. My husband. She paused. Well, he's very focused on his work. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a computer instead of a person. That must be lonely, Marcus replied with practiced sympathy. It really is. Don't get me wrong, David's a good man. He provides stability, security. But there's no intellectual curiosity there, no passion for ideas. He sees the world in terms of systems and problems to solve, not beauty or meaning or emotional connection. What do you need that you're not getting? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Through the conference room window, I could see Amanda lean back in her chair, a small smile playing at her lips. Deep conversations about things that matter. Someone who appreciates art, culture, the way good design can change how people feel about their environment. Someone who gets excited about ideas instead of just dismissing them as impractical. It sounds like you have a lot to offer someone who could appreciate those qualities. I used to think so. Now I'm not sure anyone sees me that way anymore. I see you that way. Another pause. Longer this time. You don't even know me. I know you care about making a difference. I know you have the intelligence to build partnerships between organizations and the aesthetic sense to make those partnerships beautiful. I know you take the time to really consider what someone is saying instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. How can you tell all that from one conversation? Because you asked thoughtful questions about my work instead of just promoting your organization. Because you made connections between sustainable architecture and community advocacy that most people wouldn't see. Because you're still on this call even though the business part ended an hour ago. I could see Amanda touch her hair through the window, a gesture I recognized as her self-conscious response to compliments. You're very perceptive, she said. So are you. It's one of the things I find attractive about you. The word attractive landed like a stone in still water, creating ripples of possibility. Marcus. Too forward? No, it's just, I'm married. I know. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. You didn't. That's the problem. Within a week, they were texting constantly. I monitored every message from my secure server, documenting timestamps, content, and Amanda's escalating emotional investment. The progression was textbook. Professional admiration becoming personal attraction, becoming emotional dependence. Good morning, beautiful, Marcus would text, and Amanda would respond within minutes no matter what she was supposedly doing. "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday," she wrote Thursday morning. "You said something about finding beauty in everyday moments, and I realized I've been sleepwalking through my life. When did I stop noticing sunsets?" "Maybe you just needed someone to remind you to look up," Marcus replied. "Maybe I did." The conversations became longer, more intimate, more revealing. Amanda began sharing details about her daily life, her frustrations, her dreams. Marcus listened with perfect attention, asked follow-up questions, remembered every detail she'd mentioned. "I feel like I can tell you anything," she wrote to Marcus after 10 days. "You can," he assured her. "I'm here for you." That's when the real confession started. "I have to tell you something," she wrote during her lunch break on Thursday. "I'm not happy in my marriage. I haven't been for a long time. I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to talk about it? It's complicated. David's a good man, but we're just different. He lives in this world of systems and logic, and I need emotional connection. I need someone who understands passion, creativity, dreams, someone like you. Have you talked to him about this? How do you explain to someone that they're missing a fundamental part of what makes a relationship work? It would be like teaching color to someone who's colorblind. He'd just analyze the problem and suggest practical solutions that completely miss the point. That sounds frustrating. It is. I feel like I'm withering away in this marriage, becoming this smaller, duller version of myself because there's no one to appreciate the parts of me that matter most. I screenshot every message, saved every call recording, documented every emotional progression. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was confessing her marital problems to her own husband while criticizing his methodical nature, which was exactly what would ultimately destroy her. 2 weeks in, the conversations turned more intimate. "I need to tell you something else," she wrote to Marcus during what I knew was supposed to be her staff meeting. "I've made some mistakes in my marriage. Big ones. We all make mistakes, Amanda. What matters is learning from them. I've been unfaithful, not just once." My hand stopped moving on the keyboard. Even though I'd suspected it, seeing it in black and white felt like a physical blow. The coffee in my mouth turned bitter. "How many times?" Marcus asked gently. "3 different people over the years. The first was 2 years after we got married. A colleague at a conference in Denver. His name was Michael Sims, and he was presenting on nonprofit funding strategies. We had dinner after his presentation, and I felt this incredible intellectual connection. He understood the complexities of what I do, the balance between idealism and pragmatism. What happened? It was supposed to be just one night, but we kept in touch. He'd travel to our city for consulting work, and we'd meet for dinner, long conversations, eventually more. It lasted 6 months before he took a job in Boston, and we agreed to end it. I remembered that period. Amanda had been attending more conferences, staying over an extra night for additional networking opportunities. She'd come home energized, full of new ideas and professional enthusiasm. I'd encouraged her to pursue those connections, thinking her career growth was good for both of us. The second was my personal trainer, Jake Morrison. This was about 4 years ago. I'd started going to the gym more regularly, trying to feel better about myself, and Jake made me feel strong and capable. He was this outdoorsy, athletic type who was completely different from David. How long did that last? 8 months. It ended when Jake moved to California to open his own training facility. Again, it was supposed to be just physical at first, but it became emotional. He made me feel desirable in a way I hadn't experienced since college. I remembered Jake. I'd met him several times when picking Amanda up from the gym. He'd seemed like a decent guy, friendly, professional, enthusiastic about helping clients reach their fitness goals. He'd even given me advice about strengthening exercises for my back problems. And now? Brad Stevens. He's on our board of directors. We've been seeing each other for 8 months. 8 months. While she'd been claiming to work late, attending mysterious donor meetings, going to fake conferences, she'd been having an affair with a married board member of her own organization. "How do you feel about all this?" Marcus asked. "Guilty, but also alive. David provides stability, security, but there's no passion there. With Brad, with the others, I remember what it feels like to be desired, to be seen as a woman instead of just a wife and colleague. That's a lot to carry. The worst part is the financial stuff. I've been using our joint credit cards for hotels, gifts, dinners. David manages our finances, but he's so trusting he never questions anything. He just pays the bills and assumes I'm being responsible. I've probably spent thousands of dollars on my affairs that he's paid for without knowing. I took screenshots of that admission with shaking hands. Not only was she cheating, but she was using our money to fund her betrayals. The hotel charges, the restaurant bills, the lingerie purchases, all funded by joint accounts while I worked overtime to ensure we had financial security. How much would you estimate? Marcus asked. Maybe 8 or 10,000 over the years? Brad and I usually split hotel costs, but I buy gifts, nice dinners, clothes for special occasions. Michael expected expensive restaurants and wine. He had sophisticated tastes. Jake and I did outdoor activities that required equipment, gear, weekend trips to hiking destinations. $10,000, enough for a vacation we'd never taken, home improvements we'd postponed, retirement savings we'd delayed. She'd spent our financial security on her betrayals, while I'd been cutting back on personal expenses to keep our budget balanced. Do you think you'll leave your marriage? Marcus asked. I've thought about it. Brad keeps saying he'll leave his wife for me, but I don't know if I believe him. He's been married for 15 years, has 2 kids in high school. It's complicated. What would you need to make that decision? Someone who could offer me the emotional connection I crave, but also the financial security I need. Someone successful enough that I wouldn't have to worry about practical things, but passionate enough that I'd feel truly alive with them. What would the right person look like? Someone who gets me. Someone creative and passionate, but also successful. Someone who can have deep conversations about life and art and meaning instead of just discussing home maintenance and work schedules. Someone who makes me feel beautiful and desired instead of taken for granted. She paused. Someone like you. There it was. After 3 weeks of patient digital courtship, Amanda was ready to have an affair with Marcus Wellington, her own husband's fictional creation. I've never felt this connected to someone I haven't even met in person yet, she continued. We understand each other on this deep level that I've never experienced before. Is that crazy? Not crazy at all, Marcus assured her. Sometimes emotional connection transcends physical presence. I keep thinking about what it would be like to actually be with you. To have those conversations face to face, to see if the chemistry translates to real life. Maybe we'll have that chance someday. I hope so. I feel like my whole life has been leading to this conversation, to meeting you. If she only knew. I printed every conversation, exported every call recording, and saved everything to encrypted servers with timestamps and metadata intact. Then I called Patricia Morgan, the divorce attorney I'd researched after finding the first suspicious credit card charges. I need to understand my legal position, I told her during our consultation the following Tuesday. My wife has been having multiple affairs and I have digital evidence of her admissions. Patricia Morgan's office was exactly what I'd expected. Efficient, professional, designed to handle the worst moments of people's lives with competent discretion. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that suggested she'd seen every variation of human betrayal. Let me review what you've brought, she said, settling behind her desk with the portfolio I'd prepared. Patricia reviewed the printed transcripts with professional thoroughness, occasionally making notes in the margins or asking clarifying questions about dates and circumstances. This is remarkably comprehensive documentation, she said after 30 minutes. The fact that she voluntarily confessed these details to what she believed was a third party makes them highly admissible. And the financial admissions about using joint accounts for affairs, that's misappropriation of marital assets. What about the fake profile aspect? Is that legal? In your state, as long as you didn't access her accounts or devices without permission, creating a fictional persona to test marital fidelity isn't illegal. It's psychologically complex but legally sound. You didn't hack anything, didn't violate any privacy laws, didn't impersonate a real person. You created a fictional character and waited to see if your wife would choose to pursue a relationship with him. What's my next step? Keep documenting everything. The more comprehensive your evidence, the stronger your position. Her confessions about financial misconduct will be particularly useful in asset division. When you're ready to file, this evidence will ensure a favorable outcome. How long should I wait? That depends on your goals. If you want to minimize financial exposure, continue gathering evidence while protecting joint assets. If you want to expose her professionally, timing becomes more strategic. She works for a nonprofit. How would this affect her employment? Board members having affairs with employees is a serious ethics violation in most organizations. If she's been using company resources or time for personal relationships, that could constitute misconduct. The financial impropriety might also concern her employers, especially if donors or board members learn about it. Her biggest professional event of the year is coming up, the annual donor gala. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That would certainly maximize professional impact if evidence became public during such an event. I left Patricia's office with a clear strategy and continued my Marcus Wellington performance. Amanda was falling deeper into what she thought was a new relationship while confessing every detail of her existing betrayals. The conversations became daily rituals. Amanda would text Marcus good morning before she was fully awake, share details about her day during lunch breaks, and end each evening with long, intimate conversations about their future together. I told Brad I need some space, she wrote to Marcus in early March. I think I'm falling for someone else. That's a big decision. How did he take it? Not well. He accused me of leading him on, said he'd been planning to leave his wife this summer after his daughter graduated. But I can't keep pretending to feel something I don't when my heart is somewhere else. Where is your heart? With you. I know that probably sounds crazy since we haven't met, but I've never felt this connected to someone. You understand me in ways that David never has, that Brad never could. I feel the same way. Really? Even though you don't know what I look like in person, what I'm like when I'm not carefully crafting text messages? I know the important things. I know you're intelligent and passionate and caring. I know you think deeply about things that matter. I know you deserve to be with someone who appreciates all of those qualities. Sometimes I think you might be too good to be true. Why would you say that? Because you're everything I've been looking for my entire life, and what are the odds that you'd just appear when I needed you most? The irony was staggering. She was right. Marcus was too good to be true because he was specifically designed to be exactly what she wanted. But she was also wrong about the timing. He hadn't appeared when she needed him most. He'd appeared when I needed him most. Maybe some things are meant to be, Marcus replied. Maybe they are. Our 10th wedding anniversary was approaching, April 15th. Amanda had already made dinner reservations at Palazzo, the most expensive restaurant in the city. She'd bought a new dress, made hair and spa appointments, and seemed genuinely excited about celebrating our marriage while simultaneously planning to leave it for a man who didn't exist. I think our anniversary might be the right time to have a serious conversation with David, she told Marcus 2 weeks before the date. I can't keep living this lie. What will you tell him? The truth. That I've outgrown our marriage, that we want different things, that I need to be with someone who understands me better. Will you tell him about the affairs? God, no. That would destroy him. And despite everything, I don't want to hurt him unnecessarily. I'll just say we've grown apart, that I need space to figure out what I want from life. The casual cruelty of that statement, planning to devastate my life while positioning herself as merciful for not revealing the full extent of her betrayal, crystallized my resolve. Actually, I typed as Marcus, I think honesty is important in situations like this. Don't you think he deserves to know the truth about why the marriage is ending? Maybe in an ideal world, but practical relationships require some kindness. What's the point of causing extra pain when the outcome is the same? The marriage is over either way. I suppose you're right. But I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. Besides, Amanda continued, David would probably just analyze the whole situation logically and want to work on solutions. He'd suggest counseling, communication strategies, lifestyle changes. He wouldn't understand that some things can't be fixed with systems and processes. You don't think he'd be emotionally affected? Of course he would, but he'd channel it into problem-solving mode instead of actually feeling it. That's just how he's wired. It's not his fault, but it's why we're incompatible. Even in her most intimate confessions, Amanda maintained a fundamental misunderstanding of who I was. She saw my analytical nature as emotional limitation rather than recognizing it as a different type of intelligence. The methodical approach she dismissed as cold logic was about to become the instrument of her destruction. April 15th arrived with spring rain and Amanda's excitement. She spent the afternoon at the spa, came home with perfectly styled hair and makeup, and put on the new black dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. "You look beautiful," I told her, and meant it. She did look beautiful. She also looked like a stranger. "Thank you, honey. I'm really looking forward to tonight. I feel like we haven't had quality time together in ages." "So am I." The irony was perfect. Amanda was excited about our anniversary dinner because she planned to use it as the setting for ending our marriage. I was excited about it because I planned to reveal that her exit strategy was built on a foundation of documented self-incrimination. We drove to Palazzo in a relative silence, Amanda texting with Marcus about how nervous she was about the serious conversation she planned to have with me after dinner. I watched her type from the corner of my eye, each message adding to the evidence folder that would define our future. "He seems to be in a good mood tonight," she wrote. "Maybe this will be easier than I thought." "Just be honest," Marcus replied. "He deserves that much." "You're right. I owe him honesty, even if it's painful." The restaurant was everything Amanda had hoped. Elegant lighting, perfect service, a table overlooking the city. She ordered the most expensive wine on the menu and seemed determined to make the evening memorable for all the wrong reasons. "10 years," she said, raising her glass. "It's hard to believe how fast time goes." "Time flies," I agreed, pulling out the leather portfolio I'd prepared. "Actually, I have something for you." Her eyes lit up with genuine surprise and anticipation. "A present?" "In a way." I slid the portfolio across the table. 10 years of marriage deserves something special." She opened it with the excitement of someone expecting jewelry or romantic letters. The confusion appeared first, followed quickly by shock, then horror, then a desperate kind of panic. The first page was titled, "10 Years of Marriage, 10 Years of Confessions," in elegant script. Below that was a timeline. Year 2. First affair with Michael Sims, conference colleague, duration 6 months. Year 6. Second affair with Jake Morrison, personal trainer, duration 8 months. Year 9 to 10. Ongoing affair with Brad Stevens, board member, duration 8 months. Financial misconduct. $12,847 in joint funds used for extramarital activities. The following pages contained printed screenshots of every conversation she'd had with Marcus Wellington, organized chronologically and highlighted for maximum impact. Each confession was dated, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with credit card charges and calendar entries. "What is this?" she whispered, her face going pale as she read her own words. "Keep reading." Page 5 contained her exact words. "David's a good man, but we're just different. He lives in this world of systems and logic, and I need emotional connection. I need someone who understands passion, creativity, dreams." Page 7. "I've been using our joint credit cards for hotels, gifts, dinners. David manages our finances, but he's so trusting he never questions anything. I've probably spent thousands of dollars on my affairs that he's paid for without knowing." Page 12. "I feel like my whole life has been leading to this conversation, to meeting you. David, where did you get these? Did you hack someone's account? This is illegal." Keep reading, Amanda. Get to the good part." Her hands shook as she flipped through pages of her own words, her own admissions, her own detailed confessions about betraying our marriage and stealing our money. Other diners were starting to notice her distress, but she was too focused on the documents to care. She reached the final page, which contained a single screenshot. Marcus Wellington. "Actually, I think honesty is important in situations like this. Don't you think he deserves to know the truth about why the marriage is ending?" Amanda Kowalski. "Maybe in an ideal world, but practical relationships require some kindness. What's the point of causing extra pain when the outcome is the same? The marriage is over either way." Marcus Wellington. I suppose you're right. Below that, in the same elegant script as the title page, Marcus Wellington is David Kowalski. You confessed everything to your own husband. The portfolio fell from her hands and scattered across the table. Several pages slipped to the floor, but neither of us moved to retrieve them. Amanda stared at me with a look of complete devastation. You, she stammered. You were Marcus this whole time? Every conversation, every confession, every plan to leave me for someone who understands you better. I kept my voice calm, professional. Did you know that when you told Marcus you were falling for him, you were literally falling for a computer program I created? Ironic, considering your complaints about living with someone too logical. David, I can explain. Which part? The 3 affairs? The financial theft? The part where you spent $8,000 of our money on hotel rooms and gifts for your lovers? Or the part where you were planning to break up with me tonight while pretending it was merciful not to mention the cheating? She looked around frantically, as if searching for an escape route or hoping this was some kind of nightmare. This is entrapment. You tricked me into saying those things. I created a fictional person and waited to see if my wife would choose to have an affair with him. You made every choice yourself, Amanda. I just provided the opportunity. But you manipulated me. You knew exactly what to say, how to make me feel. I knew what to say because I've been married to you for 10 years. Marcus Wellington was attractive to you because he was everything you claimed to want. Creative, successful, emotionally available. I gave you the perfect man and you still chose to cheat. Tears were running down her cheeks now, smearing her carefully applied makeup. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, therapy. Read the last page. With shaking hands, she turned to the final sheet. It was a copy of divorce papers I'd filed that morning, citing adultery and misappropriation of marital assets. You've already filed? This morning. Patricia Morgan is my attorney. She was very impressed with the quality of documentation you provided. Amanda stared at the papers, then at the scattered screenshots, then back at me. 10 years of marriage and you destroy it with some sick computer game? I didn't destroy anything, Amanda. I just documented what you'd already destroyed. The marriage ended when you decided to start the first affair. I just gathered the evidence. How long have you known? About the affairs? I suspected for months. About the extent of them, the financial theft, the complete disrespect for our marriage? That all came from your confessions to Marcus. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse and leaving the scattered documents on the table. I'm leaving. Before you go, I said calmly, you should know that tomorrow is your annual donor gala, the one you've been preparing for all year. She froze halfway to standing, her face cycling through confusion and growing dread. What about it? Check your phone. Marcus sent you a message. With trembling fingers, she opened the text. Good luck at tomorrow's gala. Hope everything goes smoothly. Break a leg. Marcus, David, what are you planning? I smiled for the first time all evening. You'll find out tomorrow night. Sweet dreams, Amanda. She ran from the restaurant, leaving me with the check and a table full of evidence. I paid calmly, collected the portfolio, and drove home to make final preparations for the donor gala. The Riverside Convention Center was Amanda's pride and joy. She'd spent months planning every detail of the annual nonprofit gala, courting major donors, coordinating with the board, preparing her keynote speech about the organization's accomplishments and future vision. 200 of the city's most influential people would attend: business leaders, politicians, major philanthropists, and of course the organization's board of directors, including Brad Stevens. I arrived early Sunday evening, wearing the catering company uniform I'd acquired through a temporary staffing agency. My systems administration background made it easy to access the venue's presentation equipment. I'd actually installed their network infrastructure 3 years earlier and still had administrative access to their systems. While Amanda was at home getting ready for the biggest professional night of her career, I was uploading her personal confessions to the venue's main projection system and preparing the surprise presentation that would end her career. At 7 p.m., guests began arriving in formal wear, Amanda greeting them with her professional smile and polished charm. She looked stunning in her burgundy gown, Every inch the successful nonprofit executive who'd spent years building relationships with the community's most powerful people. I watched from behind the catering station as she worked the room, introducing donors to board members, networking with the precision of someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of professional relationships. She moved through conversations about funding priorities and program expansion, completely unaware that her most intimate confessions were loaded and ready for public display. Brad Stevens arrived at 7:15 with his wife, a petite blonde who smiled adoringly at her husband while he shook hands with other board members. Amanda's face tightened almost imperceptibly when she saw them together, but she maintained her composure with practiced professionalism. At 7:30, I began distributing these special additions to board member place settings. Each envelope was marked confidential personnel matter and contained carefully selected excerpts from Amanda's Marcus Wellington confessions. I watched Robert Hughes, the board chairman, open his envelope during the salad course. His eyebrows rose as he read Amanda's admission. I've been unfaithful. Not just once. 3 different people over the years. Board member Sarah Sims nearly choked on her wine when she reached the financial confession. I've been using our joint credit cards for hotels, gifts, dinners. I probably spent thousands of dollars on my affairs. Dr. Williams, the longest-serving board member, set down his fork entirely as he read about Brad Stevens. Brad keeps saying he'll leave his wife for me, but I don't know if I believe him. By the main course, all 7 board members had read their packets. The whispered conversations and meaningful glances across the head table would have been obvious to anyone paying attention, but Amanda was focused on her upcoming keynote speech and the final preparations for the presentation that would define her career. At 8:45, Amanda excused herself to make final adjustments to her speech. I used those 15 minutes to access the projection system and load the presentation I'd prepared. At 9 p.m., she took the stage to thunderous applause. The presentation screen behind her displayed the organization's logo as she began her carefully rehearsed speech about integrity, community values, and moral leadership. Thank you all for being here tonight, Amanda said, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. This organization exists because we believe in the power of ethical leadership to transform communities. The irony was perfect. Amanda was speaking about ethical leadership while having spent years violating every principle she was espousing. Over the past year, we've expanded our programs, strengthened our partnerships, and maintained the highest standards of organizational integrity, she continued, clicking to her first slide about program achievements. I waited until she was 5 minutes into her speech, hitting her stride about transparency and accountability in nonprofit leadership, before activating the slideshow I'd prepared. The screen behind her changed from program statistics to a text message conversation. Marcus, how do you feel about all this? Amanda, guilty, but also alive. David provides stability, security, but there's no passion there. With Brad, with the others, I remember what it feels like to be desired. The audience noticed the change before Amanda did. A murmur spread through the room as 200 people read her personal confession about infidelity. Amanda was still speaking about program impact and community partnerships, completely unaware that her most intimate admissions were being broadcast behind her. Our commitment to transparency, Amanda continued, has never been stronger. We believe that trust is the foundation of... Someone in the audience cleared their throat loudly. Amanda glanced back at the screen and stopped mid-sentence. The next slide had appeared. Amanda, the worst part is the financial stuff. I've been using our joint credit cards for hotels, gifts, dinners. David manages our finances, but he's so trusting he never questions anything. I've probably spent thousands of dollars on my affairs that he's paid for without knowing. What is this? Amanda whispered into the microphone, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. The third slide answered her question. Marcus, what would the right person look like? Amanda, someone who gets me. Someone creative and passionate, but also successful. Someone who can have deep conversations about life and art and meaning instead of just discussing home maintenance and work schedules. Someone like you. The fourth slide contained the most damaging revelation. Amanda. Brad Stevens. He's on our board of directors. We've been seeing each other for 8 months. A collective gasp went through the room. Every head turned toward the board table where Brad Stevens sat frozen next to his wife, who was staring at him with growing horror and recognition. The final slide was simple text on a black background. Marcus Wellington is David Kowalski. These messages document 3 extramarital affairs and financial misconduct by Amanda Kowalski, Communications Director. Board members have received full documentation for review. The room was completely silent. Amanda stood frozen at the podium, her face cycling through shock, horror, and rage. In the audience, Brad Stevens was frantically whispering to his wife while she stood up and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. Robert Hughes stood from the head table. "Amanda, please step away from the podium." "I can explain," she said into the microphone, her voice breaking. "Not here. Not now. Please leave the stage immediately." Amanda looked out at the audience. 200 influential people who now knew her most intimate secrets, who had seen her confess to adultery and theft in her own words. Every major donor, every community leader, every professional contact she'd spent years cultivating was staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to pity. She ran from the stage, her heels clicking against the floor as she pushed through the ballroom doors and disappeared into the night. The murmur that followed her exit grew into a roar of conversation. Board members huddled together while guests pulled out their phones to capture screenshots of the presentation. By morning, the story would be all over social media and local news. I slipped out of the venue through the catering entrance, my mission complete. Monday morning brought the consequences I'd orchestrated with mathematical precision. Robert Hughes called an emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. Amanda didn't attend. She'd sent an email at 6 a.m. requesting sick leave, claiming she needed time to address personal matters that require immediate attention. The board meeting lasted 3 hours. I knew this because Sarah Sims posted about it on LinkedIn. Sometimes leadership requires making difficult decisions to protect organizational integrity. The board stands united in our commitment to ethical governance. By noon, the story had reached the local business journal. Nonprofit director exposed in public affairs scandal. The article included enough details from the gala incident to ensure Amanda's professional reputation was permanently damaged. The incident occurred during the organization's annual donor gala, where explicit text message conversations were displayed during the executive director's keynote speech. The messages allegedly document multiple extramarital affairs and financial impropriety involving organizational funds. Brad Stevens submitted his resignation from the board that afternoon, citing personal matters that require immediate attention. His wife had apparently spent the morning reviewing their credit card statements and finding charges that matched Amanda's confession timeline. I received a call from Patricia Morgan at 3 p.m. "Amanda's attorney called," she said. "They want to discuss settlement terms." "Already?" "The evidence is so overwhelming that contesting anything would be professional suicide. They're asking for minimal alimony, split of liquid assets only, and she keeps her car and personal belongings." "What about the financial misconduct?" "They're willing to provide full restitution for documented misappropriation of marital funds." Her attorney strongly advised against forcing this to trial. "I'll take it." By Tuesday, Amanda had been placed on administrative leave pending a thorough investigation into conduct that may have violated organizational policies. The nonprofit's board hired an external investigator to review all financial records and communications. Wednesday brought another call from Patricia Morgan. "The settlement papers are ready for signature. Amanda's attorney wants to expedite this as much as possible." "Why the rush?" "She's been receiving calls from reporters and her LinkedIn is being flooded with questions about the gala incident. Every day this drags out makes her situation worse." I signed the papers Thursday morning. The divorce would be final in 60 days. Friday, the nonprofit's board made their decision. Amanda was terminated for cause, with her conduct violating multiple organizational policies regarding ethics, conflicts of interest, and potential misuse of organizational resources. The termination letter, which was leaked to the Business Journal, cited serious violations of organizational ethics policies and conduct, incompatible with the values and mission of this organization. The termination effectively blacklisted Amanda from nonprofit work in the region. Word travels fast in professional circles, especially when someone's misconduct is documented in their own words and witnessed by 200 community leaders. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office as IT security director for a larger firm downtown. The crisis management skills I'd demonstrated during my personal situation had impressed my employers enough to offer a promotion with a significant salary increase. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Kim, the cybersecurity analyst I'd been dating for 3 months. Still on for dinner tonight? I found a new Thai place that has excellent reviews. Absolutely. Pick you up at 7? Perfect. Love you. Amanda had moved to a studio apartment across town and was working part-time at a retail clothing store while trying to rebuild her career. The divorce settlement had left her with minimal assets, and her damaged reputation made finding professional work nearly impossible. Brad Stevens had faced his own reckoning. His wife filed for divorce 2 weeks after the gala, taking half his assets and full custody of their children. His consulting business had suffered from the public scandal, and he'd quietly left town for a fresh start in Phoenix. I ran into Sarah Sims at a coffee shop that Thursday morning. She'd been elected as the nonprofit's new board chair after the organizational restructuring following Amanda's termination. "David," she said, approaching my table with her usual direct manner. "I heard about your promotion. Congratulations." "Thank you, Sarah." "How's the organization recovering?" "Better than expected, actually. The new executive director is excellent, and some donors have actually increased their contributions to show support for our new leadership." She paused. "What you did at the gala, it was certainly dramatic." "Amanda made her choices. I just documented them. The board appreciated having clear evidence to work with. It made our decision much easier." She hesitated. "Do you ever regret how it all happened?" "I regret that it was necessary. But given what I discovered, I handled it the only way that ensured accountability." "Well, you certainly proved that technical skills can be applied to more than just computer problems. Sometimes personal problems require systematic solutions." After she left, I opened my laptop and checked the cybersecurity conference schedule. I'd been invited to present a session called Digital Forensics in Personal Security. Apparently, my methods had attracted professional interest from colleagues dealing with their own trust issues. 2 months later, I received an email from a colleague in Seattle who'd heard about my presentation. "David, I have a friend going through a similar situation with his wife. He's found evidence of infidelity but doesn't know how to proceed legally. Would you be willing to consult on proper documentation methods?" I forwarded the email to Patricia Morgan, who'd started offering digital evidence consultation services for other betrayed spouses dealing with infidelity cases. "You've created a whole new practice area," she told me during our phone call. "The systematic approach you developed has helped 12 other clients achieve favorable divorce outcomes. Glad something positive came from the experience. Your ex-wife's case has become a cautionary tale in family law circles. The comprehensive digital documentation and strategic timing of evidence presentation is now taught as best practices for infidelity cases." "How is Amanda doing?" "Last I heard, she moved to Portland and was working in retail management. The nonprofit sector remains essentially closed to her due to the reputation damage." "And Brad Stevens?" "Divorced, relocated to Arizona, struggling to rebuild his consulting business. The professional consequences have been significant for both of them." As I hung up the phone, I realized that my systematic approach to addressing Amanda's betrayal had generated benefits beyond my personal situation. Other people facing similar circumstances now had a methodical framework for protecting themselves and ensuring accountability. That weekend, Sarah and I attended a cybersecurity conference where I delivered the keynote presentation on digital forensics for personal protection. The audience included IT professionals, attorneys, and private investigators interested in applying corporate security principles to domestic situations. "The same tools we use to protect business data can protect personal interests," I explained to the audience. "Digital communication leaves permanent traces, and systematic documentation can provide unassailable evidence of misconduct." During the Q&A session, a woman in the front row raised her hand. "How do you balance strategic evidence collection with emotional processing of betrayal?" "The emotional processing comes after you've secured your legal and financial position. Anger and hurt are natural responses to betrayal, but they can interfere with logical decision-making. Document first, feel later. Did you ever consider confronting your wife directly instead of the systematic approach? Direct confrontation would have given her the opportunity to destroy evidence, create false narratives, or make strategic preparations for divorce proceedings. The systematic approach ensured she faced consequences based on her own documented admissions, rather than competing stories about what happened. A man in the back raised his hand. What advice would you give to someone who suspects infidelity but doesn't have technical expertise? Start with basic observation and documentation. Unusual phone behavior, unexplained expenses, changes in routine. Document everything with dates and details. For digital evidence, consult with professionals rather than attempting anything that might violate privacy laws. How long did your investigation take? 3 months from initial suspicion to final evidence collection. The key is patience and systematic approach rather than emotional reaction. After the presentation, several attendees approached me with their own situations, seeking advice on evidence collection and legal strategy. It was clear that infidelity in the digital age required new approaches to investigation and accountability. That evening, Sarah and I had dinner at a restaurant overlooking the conference center. "You've become something of an expert on digital betrayal," she observed. "Not by choice, but the expertise has proved useful for others facing similar situations. Do you think what you did to Amanda was revenge or justice?" I considered the question carefully. Amanda faced professional and personal consequences that directly resulted from her documented behavior. She destroyed her own reputation through her own words and choices. The systematic approach made it more effective than emotional confrontation would have been. Exactly. Anger would have led to arguments and competing narratives. Documentation led to undeniable evidence and clear consequences. It's actually quite elegant from a strategic perspective. 6 months later, I received a wedding invitation that surprised me. Robert Hughes was remarrying, and he'd included a note with the invitation. "David, I wanted to thank you again for your handling of the situation with Amanda. The way you documented everything and presented it to the board allowed us to make necessary changes without getting bogged down in he said, she said disputes. The organization is stronger now, and we've implemented new ethics policies based on the lessons learned. Hope you're doing well." Robert? I showed the invitation to Sarah, who was now my fiancée. We'd gotten engaged 3 months earlier during a weekend trip to the mountains. Our relationship built on mutual respect and genuine compatibility rather than the fantasy projections that had characterized my marriage to Amanda. "Are you going to attend?" Sarah asked. "I think so. It's nice to see positive outcomes from a difficult situation. Your systematic approach really did benefit more people than just yourself. Sometimes the right methodology produces good results for everyone involved." That evening, I updated my LinkedIn profile to include digital investigation consultant among my professional services. Patricia Morgan and I had formalized our collaboration, offering comprehensive support for individuals facing infidelity situations who wanted to protect themselves legally and financially. The irony of my career evolution wasn't lost on me. Amanda's betrayal had inadvertently created expertise that was helping other people navigate similar crises with better outcomes than traditional emotional approaches typically produced. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Dinner ready in 10 minutes. Love you." I smiled and closed my laptop. The systematic approach that had ended my marriage to Amanda had led to a much better relationship with someone who appreciated rather than resented my analytical nature. A year later, Sarah and I were married in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Patricia Morgan attended as a friend rather than an attorney, and Robert Hughes gave a toast about the importance of finding partners who appreciate your strengths rather than resenting them. Amanda wasn't invited, obviously. According to mutual friends, she was still in Portland, working in retail management and dating a musician who played in local coffee shops. She'd apparently started therapy and was working on herself, which seemed like a positive development for everyone involved. Brad Stevens had remarried as well, a divorce attorney he'd met during his own divorce proceedings. They'd started a practice together in Phoenix, specializing in high-conflict custody cases. The irony seemed appropriate. During our honeymoon in Italy, Sarah and I visited several architectural sites that Marcus Wellington would have appreciated. We took photos, shared observations about design and cultural significance, and had the kind of intellectually stimulating conversations that Amanda had claimed to want. "It's funny," Sarah said, as we stood in front of the Duomo in Florence. "You're actually all the things Marcus Wellington pretended to be: thoughtful, cultured, analytically brilliant." Amanda was looking for something she already had. She was looking for fantasy rather than reality. Good thing she didn't appreciate what she had. Otherwise, I might never have met you. Everything worked out the way it was supposed to. 2 years after the divorce, I received an unexpected email from Amanda. The subject line was simple: apology. "David, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to apologize for everything. I've been in therapy for over a year now, trying to understand why I made those choices and how I hurt you so badly. I know an apology doesn't undo the damage I caused, but I needed you to know that I understand how wrong I was. I hope you're happy and that you found someone who appreciates you the way you deserve. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize what I had. Amanda." I showed the email to Sarah, who read it thoughtfully. "How do you feel about that?" she asked. "Honestly, nothing. It's nice that she's taking responsibility, but it doesn't change anything. Are you going to respond? No point. She made her decisions and I made mine. We're both living with the results." Sarah deleted the email for me. Fresh starts sometimes require clean breaks. Agreed. 3 years later, I received another email from a colleague who'd attended my cybersecurity conference presentation. "David, I have a situation similar to what you went through. My wife has been acting suspicious for months, and I found some evidence of possible infidelity. I remembered your presentation and wondered if you could provide some guidance on proper documentation methods." I forwarded the email to Patricia Morgan, who now had a thriving practice helping betrayed spouses navigate divorce proceedings with comprehensive digital evidence. "You've created an entire industry," she told me during our phone call. "The systematic approach you developed has helped over 50 clients achieve favorable divorce outcomes. Several other attorneys are now offering similar services. I'm glad something positive came from the experience. Your methodology has become the gold standard for digital evidence collection in family law. There's even talk of creating a certification program for investigators specializing in this area." That weekend, Sarah and I celebrated our second wedding anniversary with dinner at the same restaurant where Amanda and I had our final conversation. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. 2 years ago, you exposed your ex-wife's affairs at her biggest professional event," Sarah said, raising her glass. "Tonight, we're celebrating a marriage built on actual trust and compatibility. The contrast is pretty remarkable. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Amanda had been honest from the beginning? Sometimes, but I think the fundamental incompatibility would have surfaced eventually. She needed drama and fantasy. I need honesty and logical partnership. Good thing you found someone who appreciates logic and honesty. Very good thing." As we left the restaurant, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. Amanda's betrayal had initially felt like devastation, but it had ultimately led to a much better situation: a stronger career, a healthier relationship, and expertise that was helping other people protect themselves from similar betrayals. 5 years after the divorce, I received a LinkedIn message from an unexpected source: Michael Sims, Amanda's first affair partner from the Denver conference. "Hi, David. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I recently learned about what happened with Amanda and wanted to apologize for my role in damaging your marriage. I should have respected that she was married and ended things immediately. I've been in therapy, working on my own issues with relationships and accountability. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." I showed the message to Sarah, who was now pregnant with our first child. "That's unexpected," she said. "It is. But it's good that people are taking responsibility for their actions." Are you going to respond? Brief acknowledgement, but nothing more. His apology doesn't change what happened, but it's mature of him to take responsibility. I sent a short reply. "Thank you for the apology. I appreciate you taking responsibility. I hope you've learned from the experience. Best of luck with your personal growth." A month later, I received an invitation to speak at a national cybersecurity conference about personal digital security in the age of social media. The presentation would focus on protecting personal information and relationships from digital threats. Ironic, given that I'd become an expert by creating digital threats rather than defending against them. During the presentation, I shared the story of Amanda's betrayal and my systematic response, emphasizing the legal and ethical considerations of digital investigation. The goal isn't revenge, I told the audience. It's accountability. People should face consequences proportional to their actions, based on documented evidence rather than emotional accusations. What advice would you give to someone facing a similar situation? Asked an audience member. Focus on protection and documentation rather than retaliation. Secure your financial assets, gather evidence systematically, and work with professionals who understand both the legal and technical aspects of your situation. How do you know when enough evidence is enough? When you have sufficient documentation to protect your interests legally and financially. The goal is ensuring fair consequences, not destroying someone's life out of anger. After the presentation, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. "Your story gave me hope," she said. "My husband has been cheating for years, and I felt powerless because he's so careful about hiding it. But your systematic approach shows that there are ways to document the truth and protect myself. The key is patience and professional guidance," I told her. "Don't let emotion drive your decisions. Focus on protecting yourself first." 6 months later, I received an update from her through Patricia Morgan's office. She'd successfully documented her husband's affairs, achieved a favorable divorce settlement, and was rebuilding her life with financial security intact. "Another success story thanks to your methodology," Patricia told me. "We've now helped over 100 clients using the systematic approach you developed." That evening, Sarah and I were at home preparing for our daughter's birth, which was expected any day. We'd chosen the name Victoria, not after the lingerie store that had revealed Amanda's deception, but after the concept of victory through adversity. "Do you think Victoria will ask about your first marriage someday?" Sarah asked as we assembled the crib. "Probably. Kids are curious about their parents' history." "What will you tell her?" "That sometimes people make choices that hurt others, but that doesn't mean you have to let them hurt you without consequences. And that the most important thing is finding someone who shares your values and treats you with respect." "Think she'll appreciate having analytical parents?" "I hope so. Logic and systematic thinking are useful life skills." Victoria was born 2 weeks later, a healthy, alert baby who seemed to study everything around her with intense focus. When the nurse placed her in my arms for the first time, I felt a surge of protectiveness and determination to give her the kind of stable, honest family environment that Amanda and I had failed to create. "She has your eyes," Sarah said. "Analytical and intelligent. Let's hope she uses that intelligence wisely." 8 years after the divorce, I received a final communication from Amanda. It came through Patricia Morgan's office, a formal letter expressing gratitude for handling our divorce with professionalism and discretion. According to the letter, Amanda had completed a master's degree in counseling and was working as a therapist, specializing in relationship issues and personal accountability. She'd married a social worker and was apparently applying the lessons she'd learned from our marriage to help other people navigate relationship problems more honestly. "She wanted to thank you for forcing her to confront her behavior," Patricia explained during our phone call. "Says the consequences you documented were exactly what she needed to motivate real change." Interesting perspective. She also wanted to make sure you knew that she takes full responsibility for what happened and doesn't want you to carry any guilt about how things ended. I wasn't carrying guilt, but it's nice to know she's learned from the experience. She included a donation to a cybersecurity education foundation in your name. Said she wanted to support the kind of systematic thinking that protects people from digital threats. The donation was substantial, enough to fund several scholarships for students pursuing cybersecurity degrees. It seemed like an appropriate way to close the chapter on our relationship. That evening, I shared the news with Sarah and Victoria, who was now 8 years old and already showing aptitude for logical problem-solving. "Your first wife became a therapist?" Sarah asked. "That's quite a career change from nonprofit administration." "People can change when they face real consequences for their actions." Do you think she's actually changed or just learned to hide her behavior better? Time will tell, but it doesn't affect us either way. Victoria looked up from her homework, a math problem involving pattern recognition. Dad, what's the difference between consequences and revenge? Consequences are proportional to actions and focused on preventing future harm. Revenge is about causing pain because you're angry. So what you did to your first wife was consequences. Yes, she made choices that hurt people and she faced consequences that matched those choices. That makes sense. Actions should have results. Exactly. 10 years after the divorce, I was invited to give the keynote address at a national conference on ethics in digital investigation. My methodology had become standard practice in family law, and several universities were offering courses based on the systematic approach I developed. During the presentation, I emphasized the importance of legal and ethical boundaries in personal investigation. The goal is protection and accountability, not destruction, I told the audience. We use these tools to ensure fair consequences for documented behavior, not to punish people for emotional satisfaction. How do you maintain objectivity when investigating someone who's betrayed you personally? Asked an audience member. By focusing on documentation rather than emotion. The evidence speaks for itself. Your job is just to collect it systematically and present it clearly. What's the most important lesson you've learned from your experience? That systematic thinking and strategic patience are more effective than emotional confrontation. Logic produces better outcomes than anger. After the presentation, I was approached by a producer from a documentary series about digital age relationships. They wanted to create an episode about systematic approaches to relationship betrayal, using my story as a case study. We'd protect your privacy and change identifying details, the producer explained. But your methodology could help millions of people who are dealing with infidelity and don't know how to protect themselves. I discussed the opportunity with Sarah and Victoria. We decided that sharing the story could benefit other families dealing with betrayal, as long as privacy protections were maintained. The documentary aired a year later, titled Digital Truth: When Technology Reveals Relationship Deception. My story was featured alongside those of other people who'd used systematic approaches to address partner betrayal. The response was overwhelming. Patricia Morgan's office received hundreds of inquiries from people seeking help with similar situations. Several other attorneys around the country started offering comparable services. You've essentially created a new field of legal practice, Patricia told me. Digital forensics for personal protection is now a recognized specialty. 15 years after the divorce, I received an unexpected invitation to Amanda's wedding. She was marrying the social worker she'd been dating for several years, and the invitation included a personal note. David, I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to invite you to witness this new chapter in my life. The systematic way you documented my behavior forced me to confront who I was and commit to becoming someone better. I'm marrying someone who shares my values and commitment to honesty, and I owe that growth partly to the consequences you ensured I faced. I understand if you choose not to attend, but I wanted you to know that your response to my betrayal ultimately saved my life. Amanda. I showed the invitation to Sarah and Victoria, who was now 15, and considering colleges with strong cybersecurity programs. Are you going to go? Victoria asked. I don't think so. But it's nice to know that the consequences led to positive change. Maybe send a card wishing her well? Sarah suggested. That seems appropriate. I sent a simple congratulations card with a note. Wishing you happiness and continued growth. May your new marriage be built on the honesty and accountability that create lasting partnerships. 2 weeks later, I received a thank you note from Amanda with a photo from the wedding. She looked genuinely happy, and the social worker seemed like a kind, stable person who appreciated her maturity and growth. Thank you for the kind wishes, she wrote. I'm grateful for second chances and the hard lessons that made them possible. 20 years after the divorce, Sarah and I celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary with dinner at the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. Victoria was now in college, studying cybersecurity and digital ethics, inspired by the story of how systematic thinking had protected our family. Do you ever regret how things happened with Amanda? Sarah asked over dessert. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret protecting myself and ensuring accountability for her choices. You created a better life for all of us. Me, Victoria, even Amanda, ultimately. Sometimes the right response to betrayal creates positive outcomes for everyone involved. That evening, we received a text from Victoria. Dad, my digital ethics professor wants to invite you to speak at graduation about systematic approaches to personal security. Interested? I smiled and showed the message to Sarah. Our daughter wants me to speak at her graduation. About the same methodology that brought us together. Life has a way of creating meaningful patterns. 25 years after the divorce, I received a final letter from Amanda. She was retiring from her therapy practice and had written a book about relationship accountability and personal growth. The book included a chapter about facing consequences and using them as motivation for genuine change. I wanted to send you the first copy, she wrote. Your systematic response to my betrayal taught me that actions have consequences, and that facing those consequences is the first step toward becoming a better person. Thank you for refusing to let me avoid accountability. It changed my life for the better. The book was titled Consequences and Grace: How Facing Truth Changes Everything. Amanda had dedicated it to everyone who has faced consequences for their actions and chosen growth over resentment. I read the chapter about our marriage with interest. Amanda had written about her affairs, the financial misconduct, and the systematic way I'd documented everything with remarkable honesty and insight. I thought I was the victim of my husband's cold, logical nature, she wrote. But his systematic approach to exposing my behavior was exactly what I needed to understand that my actions had real consequences for real people. The public exposure at my professional gala was humiliating, but it forced me to confront the damage I'd caused and commit to becoming someone worthy of trust. Sarah read the chapter and smiled. She finally understood that your analytical nature was a strength, not a limitation. It only took 25 years and complete career destruction for her to figure it out. Some people learn faster than others. That weekend, Victoria called from her new job at a cybersecurity firm in San Francisco. She'd specialized in digital forensics and was already being consulted on cases involving personal protection and evidence gathering. Dad, I have a client who's dealing with a situation similar to what you went through with Amanda. Can you recommend any resources for systematic documentation of partner infidelity? Send them Patricia Morgan's information. She's still the best in the field for that kind of work. Will do. And Dad, thank you for showing me that logic and strategic thinking can protect people from those who would hurt them. That's the most important thing I could teach you. Victoria had grown up understanding that systematic thinking and strategic patience were tools for protection and justice, not just academic exercises. She'd seen how the methodology that had ended my first marriage had created the stable, honest family environment that had shaped her entire life. As I hung up the phone, I reflected on the complete transformation that had resulted from Amanda's betrayal. What had initially felt like devastation had become the foundation for a better career, a healthier marriage, and a daughter who was already using systematic thinking to help other people protect themselves from deception. Sometimes the most logical response to betrayal is comprehensive documentation and strategic patience. Amanda had taught me that lesson through her own choices, and I'd applied it with mathematical precision. The system had worked exactly as designed,